to say welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us for our session today, the National Contract Management Association's Navigating NCMA Certifications. My name is Bree Staker. I am the Director of Certification and Standards for NCMA headquarters, and I'll be hosting the presentation along with Dr. John Wilkinson and Juanitria, and she goes by Nini, so Nini Denny. Couple housekeeping items throughout the presentation. Please use the chat window to communicate with each other. However, if you have a question, please insert that in the Q&A window to ask your question. We won't be able to see your question unless you stick it in the Q&A window. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I have introduced myself, again, Bree Staker, a little bit about me. I just joined NCMA staff in July. Prior to that, I worked my entire career, over 18 years, in the contract management industry. I worked on the industry side, working for both large businesses and small businesses. As you can see here, I've been an avid member of NCMA. I think I joined in 2004. I've got a couple certifications myself, so I definitely understand the process and what it's like for you, the user, and the clients. I'm an alumni of our Contract Management Leadership Development Program, or CMLDP. And the reason I mention that, it's kind of cool because my co-presenter, Dr. John Wilkinson, was my CMLDP coach nearly 10 years ago. So it's truly is a small world that now we work together. So John is the president of Think LLC. He consults with us for the certification program. Prior to that, he worked on NCMA staff heading up the certification program, and then had a pretty robust career in contract management as well. If you don't know John, I highly recommend you get to know him. He's certainly someone worth knowing. Okay, so why are we here? What are we doing today? The point of this presentation is to give you a general overview of the certification program, kind of start to finish, from why even bother getting a certification? What is it? What's the value? What certifications do we offer? The process, and we'll go through the process for applications. Once you get your certification, how do you maintain it through recertification? And then we'll talk about continuous professional education, or CPE. I think this is the area where we get the most questions, so we'll certainly be sure to cover that. But first, I want to introduce you to our certification team. We've already mentioned myself and John, but the real star of the show is Nini. She is the one who is responding to your applications. She's reviewing your applications. If you submit a question through email for certification, she's the one answering that. She's answering your voicemails. So I want you to know that we're a small but mighty team, and there is a real live person behind all of your applications and your questions. She's got the heavy lift, and she's just one of the hardest workers I think I've met. So Nini, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do for NCMA, and how long you've been with us, and anything else you'd like to share.
Sure. Hello all. My name is Juanitria Denny. As Bree mentioned, I go by Nini. I'm the certification advocate here. I've been with NCMA for 3 years, doing all things certification. So answering inquiries, whether it be phone, email, voicemail, reviewing applications, inputting new certifications. So again, just doing the day-to-day here when it comes to certification, the customer service aspect. So if you have any questions, I'm most likely the one that you're going to get when you call in or send your emails in. Again, knowing all things about certifications, the application process. So feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'll definitely drop my contact information in our chat box here. So if you have any questions following this webinar, feel free to reach out, and I'm more than willing to help. With that being said, I will give it back over to you, Bree.
All right, thank you, Nini. Okay, so NCMA, who are we? A quick overview. Again, we're the National Contract Management Association. We've been around a while. We were founded in 1959. Our focus is on professional development for contract managers. So to that end, we have a certification program which consists of 4 nationally recognized certifications, and we have our CPCM listed there, which we consider our gold standard. It's our Certified Professional Contract Manager, and it is ANAB accredited. Our CFCM, so the Certified Federal Contract Manager, and our CCMA, the Certified Certified Contract Manager Associate, is also ANAB accredited. So what the heck is ANAB accreditation? Why do you care? What does that mean to you? So the A in ANAB stands for ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute. So ANAB is ANSI's National Accreditation Board. So essentially, it's one thing for us to tell you that we have these nationally recognized certifications, or call one the gold standard when we developed it. But we decided to go out there and make sure that we really truly are giving you the highest quality program we can. So we held ourselves up to the ISO standard 17024, which is the international standard for certification programs. And ANAB audited us. So it's this very rigorous audit process where they went through to determine if we truly actually met cradle to grave all of those requirements of that ISO standard for certifications. The accreditation shows that we not only meet it, but we continue to meet it. It's an ongoing process. So we go through continuous audits, and we're continuously held to this international standard. That means for you, when you have one of those certifications, that you're getting the highest quality of a certification program recognized across the industry and internationally. So it sets this global benchmark that determines and qualifies that you're going to get a consistent, comparable, and reliable product worldwide, no matter where you are. And we certainly have international folks that go through our certification program too. To date, to my knowledge, there aren't any other certification bodies in the contract management space that have this accreditation. So it just further helps stand out those certification programs for you. Our certification program also provides educational and network building opportunities. This is through the Continuous Professional Education, or CPE. Just by its nature, you're going to get training, you're going to learn, you're going to be in these seminars and training sessions with other people, which behooves to networking and helps you grow that way. Okay, certification team, you already met us. So the value of certification, why get one? So this is super cool to me. So the marketplace determines the value. The profession determines the requirement. So the way our certification program works, you in the contract management space, you guys are setting the requirements and you're determining the value. So we have a certification oversight body. It's made up entirely of volunteers. They are in charge of overseeing our certification program, of determining the requirements, and for ensuring that we continue to deliver high quality. And so essentially, the way this is put together is contract management practitioners develop and maintain and deliver the certification program for contract management practitioners. We regularly use volunteers to review our exams, to help write questions for the exams. So it really is the contract management industry and body as a whole that is determining the value and the requirements. So if you get a certification, that means that you've received an independent assessment of competency and mastery of contract management lifecycle. And this is based on our contract management standard, which is a free download on our website. And that shows that you've mastered the life cycle, the competencies, pre-award, award, and post-award. And of course, then our SIMBOK, the contract management body of knowledge, goes into the nitty-gritty detail of all those areas plus more. Okay, so what is certification? It validates your knowledge of contract management. It inspires continuous learning, professional development, and growth in contract management. And it brings you one step closer to professional perfection. So, of course, no one will ever attain perfection. It's just not possible. But the cool thing about that is whether you're 2 years in the industry or 50 years in the industry, there's always something to learn. There's always a way to grow and an area to grow. So certification just proposes and keeps you going on your professional development and growth cycle. It is not, however, it can't substitute for performance. It can't substitute for experience or teamwork or qualification. It does not guarantee success, and it doesn't determine who can pass an exam. Those are all very individualized things. So it's up to you, the certificate holder, on how you perform. If you're a good team player, for your qualifications, for your success. So the certification shows that you've mastered those competencies, but then it's up to you to deliver those things in your day-to-day, essentially how you apply the knowledge that you've learned. One of the things I will say, in my previous career as a director of contracts and a contracts manager, I went through hiring of people. And one of the things I always looked for was if they had an NCMA certification, because what that told me was that person had self-discipline. It's not easy to take time out of your busy day and your schedules for months, sometimes depending on how you study, to apply yourself and to study, and then to be able to pass the test. The motivation, it just takes, it takes a lot for the individual to do that. And so that shows that that's a person who has self-discipline, who can manage their time, who can prioritize, and who desires to grow and be better. And those are all statements of Bree, but I know those are things that if I had an applicant that had a certification, it kind of gave me an idea of like, okay, this person has a bit of a leg up, because I know that maybe they're a self-starter and they're motivated and they're disciplined. Okay, so what are some NCMA certifications? They're stackable. So we've designed them with an entry level, our CCMA, a middle, which is our CFCM and the CCCM, and then our more experienced level, which is the CPCM. So essentially we've designed it so that no matter where you are in your career, there's a certification that aligns and that you can pursue. So you can go and do them in order if you want to, and you want to grow that way. You don't have to, but they are designed so that they meet the contract management industry as a whole, regardless of where you're at in your career. They're portable, so that means that they can transfer and move with you. As long as you're within the contract management industry, your certification is going to be it's going to be valid. It's a universal application, and it's not tied to a single role, a single contract methodology, an organization. So whether you're on the federal side, the commercial side, the industry side, the knowledge transfers and the certification transfers with you. It's voluntary, and I think that really makes it stand out, because if it was a mandatory requirement, then the only way to stand out is if you're the person that doesn't have one. And again, it takes discipline, it takes prioritization and time management, it takes motivation to get one. So all of those things help you stand out. It shows that you want to be a better contract manager, and that you want to continue to grow in your education and your training and your experience. And with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, thank you very much, Bree. And this pyramid is to help you visualize what Bree just described as far as being stackable. Over time, you are expected to develop your competence, where you start with your CCMA and as Bree mentioned, rise through your CFCM, CCCM, and then ultimately get to that CPCM. And you do that through continuous learning. So it's just an ongoing process. That is what, to me, is crucial about certification. It isn't just hitting a milestone, but it's demonstrating that you are dedicated to lifelong learning. You just don't stop. You just don't come to one and you're done. Now you can get these in any order. For instance, I got my CPCM first, and then I got my CFCM. So you can get them in any order that you want. This is a recommended milestone accomplishment, so just to help you visualize what's going on. And with the CCMA being based on the contract management standard, and I'm going to get into a little bit more on the details in a couple of slides on each of these certifications. But the contract management standard was developed through a job task analysis, subject matter experts, and public comments. Hopefully all of you were able to participate in the job task analysis and comment period when we reaffirmed the standard earlier this year. But these competencies and job tasks weren't just something that NCMA pulled out of the sky. They were developed through a consensus process, and that standard is accredited by ANSI. So here you're talking about a third-party accredited certification being based on a third-party accredited standard. So that CMS is an American national standard, and it's free. It's on NCMA's website. It's a 20-page document, and again, I'll get into more of that. But again, rising up. So this is pretty much the path that you're expected to get into. And again, don't panic too much. I'll get into the details here in a couple of slides. So next slide, please, Bree. If you're looking for a guide on where you should be, where NCMA feels you should be, again, this chart was developed by subject matter experts who volunteered for NCMA several years ago. And although the CCMA is new, this is where it would plug into this beginner, journeyman, all the way through executive level. So if you want to be on pace, on track with your professional development, NCMA believes you should hold a CCMA in the first 5 or 6 years of your career, then transition over to the mid-tier, the CFCM, or the CCCM, whichever one is applicable to you. And then eventually, as an expert practitioner, manager, and executive, achieving that CPCM. So again, that is what we identify as the gold standard. So next slide, please. And this is the one I wanted to spend a little time on. And starting at the bottom, and I've already talked a little bit about the CCMA, but I also wanted to point out too, as Bree did before, with the CCMA, CFCM, and CPCM being ANAB accredited, being third-party accredited. The analogy I like to use here is it's fine for NCMA to say that we're pretty, but it means a whole lot more when somebody else says we're pretty. So a third party has gone through our processes and have said that we meet their assessment, that we meet high quality standards, and so they have accredited us. And that's really what NCMA wants to do with you as far as having a third-party certification. It's one thing for you to say you're pretty, but it means more when NCMA says you're pretty. So that's it. The intent here with the certification is not only to help you keep going on your lifelong learning, but also making sure that you're being measured along the way, you're being assessed along the way to see if you're in step with the education, training, and work experience that you should be developing over a period of time. But back on the lower level, the CCMA, for this one, you need 1 year of experience in contract management or a 4-year degree from a regionally accredited school. So either one. So essentially somebody who just graduated college can get certified by the CCMA. Now, of course, nobody is going to be expecting you to be proficient at contract management at that level. However, any hiring official, anybody around you should see through that certification that you are serious about the profession. You have an understanding of the competencies and job tasks identified in that contract management standard for both the buyer and the seller. That's what's unique about that standard, is it covers both sides, not just one. So you understand the pre-award, the award, and the post-award life cycles of a contract. You will need, in addition to that 1 year or 4 year degree, 1 year experience or 4 year degree, you'll need 40 hours of training. Now, a lot of people who have their 4 year degree want to know, how can I get my CPE for that? Well, if you have a college course, a business course that does not count toward your degree that you're using, if it's in semester hours, the CPE equivalent for that, you get 15 CPEs for every single semester hour. So that'd be 45 CPEs right there. So it's possible you could qualify without having sat for a training course of any type. And also keep in mind that for these CPE, you do not have to have, it does not have to be from NCMA. It could be from anywhere. And that exam is 2 hours. It's 90 questions. You need to pass at 72.5. And I want to talk a little bit about that too. How did we come up with 72.5? And then if you scroll up to the CPCM, you need a 72.2. Well, it wasn't just Bree, Nini, and John sitting around trying to figure out how we're going to mess around with you. These were measured by a professional psychometrician. She came in and looked at each one of our exams and determined which were difficult, which were easy. And for the overall exam, she came up with a range of scores that'd be acceptable. That range went to the NCMA Certification Oversight Body, and they voted and determined each one of these passing scores. So that's where the odd number of 72.5 and 72.2 come in. Now, it's very possible it could be next year or the year after we go through that process again, and these numbers could change again. So just be mindful, and you'll be directed to the handbooks. Make sure you watch the handbooks all the time, because that is where your most current information is going to be. So, and then once you gain your certification, your CCMA, you're expected to recertify every 3 years. And then every even cycle, meaning every 6 years, you have to repass the exam along with that 40 CPE. So that one's a little complicated, but that's what we expect of our entry-level people, that passing the exam thing again, the standard, the contract management standard tends to change. We anticipate it changing at least every 5 years. Again, it changed this year, so we don't expect it to be for another at least 3 years. So you're safe now. But just wanted to remind you of that. Going up to the CFCM and the CCCM, these two are pretty much the same, except the Certified Federal Contract Manager is based on the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So if you deal with that, you may want to consider the CFCM. And for those of you who deal with state procurement, keep in mind, if you deal with any procurement that has federal dollars attached to it, you're responsible for knowing the FAR. So that's typically in your construction projects, your interstate transportation type projects. So keep that in mind. For the Uniform Commercial Code, this applies universally. The roots of the UCC go back centuries, and it was started in England, and they took all this case law and transferred it around the world to all their colonies, including, of course, the U.S. So the UCC is relevant everywhere, and you can see it in the United Nations, and their member nations go by the Uniform Commercial Code. Also American Native tribes, and back to those of you who are in state procurement. Of course, you have your own procurement rules, but where there are gaps, the courts will look to the UCC for an answer to decide the case, whether it's going to be in your favor or not. So the UCC is relevant to many, many people. But to qualify for either one of those exams, first off, we look at your 4-year degree. If you don't have a 4-year degree, it can be waived by having 5 years of experience plus 24 college hours in business. So, so there are 2 paths there. You need at least 2 years of experience, 80 hours of training. That exam is 3 hours. It's 150 questions. And when you do get certified there, you're expected to recertify every 5 years with 60 hours of training. That's an average of 1 hour a month over that 5 years. And now getting to the CPCM, that's based on the contract management body of knowledge. The CMBOK expands on the competencies identified in the contract management standard. So you may just have a brief description of that competency or job task in the CMS, but the CMBOK expands on it. So the CMS is 20 pages long. The CMBOK is over 400 pages long. The CMS might tell you to choose a contract type. The CMBOK is going to describe all those contract types for you. So for the entry requirements, and there are no waivers here. So I can speak for Nini, no need to bother asking for a waiver for the CPCM. You must have a 4-year degree from a regionally accredited school. You must have 5 years of experience, and you must have 120 hours of training. Now the 120 hours must be less than 10 years old at the time you submit your application. So keep that in mind. Your degree can be 50 years old. There's no time limit on that. But your CPE must be at least 10 years young. That's a 4-hour degree, 180 questions, and there are scenarios in that where there are questions based on those scenarios. And for this one, you're expected to recertify every 5 years, and the new requirement is 100 CPE to differentiate from the CFCM and CCCM. I wanted to talk a little bit quickly before we move to the next slide on the time frame. If you look, see with the CPCM, it goes from 4 hours, then the next one down is 3 hours, the next one is 2 hours. The formula here is for each regular question, you're given 1 minute per question, and then you're given 30 minutes for a review. So that's on average. Now the scenario-based questions in the CPCM, you're given 2 minutes per question there. So the formula works out 4 hours, 3 hours, and 2 hours. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense than the passing score that we put up there for you. So next slide, please. And here are the phases that you'll be going through. First off, you're starting with your application where you're expected to gain contract management confidence through your education, training, and experience. You pull that together, and then you submit your application, and you're approved to sit for your exam, and that's where the knowledge area comes in, the phase 2. So you sit for the exam, you pass it, you go into the gold circle there, you are certified, and then you continue to learn through phase 4, and those who meet the recertification requirements are recertified. And to me, as a hiring official, the important question isn't, are you certified, but how many times have you been recertified? that to me, certification is a big deal, but the recertification to me is even a bigger deal. I've seen too many people who let their certifications lapse. That is not a strong indicator of dedication to lifelong learning that I like to see as a hiring official. So that wraps up my session, and I'm going to turn it back over to Bree.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, so the application process, we're going to kind of walk through the details of how it works. You've decided you want a certification, so what happens next? First, I want to make sure everyone knows you do not have to be an NCMA member to achieve a certification or to maintain a certification. And the way it works is when you're ready to submit your application, you do that through your profile on NCMA's site. And again, you can have a non-member profile or a member profile. You'll follow the instructions to submit your application and pay that fee. And then from there, your application is received and reviewed by our certification department, otherwise known as NCMA. And so we do ask that you allow up to 15 business days for the review process to take place. We do track that and make sure that we stay within the 15 business days. Once your application is approved, you're going to get an email. It's a welcome email to create an account through Criterion, or it might say Web Assessor. They are our testing provider. So from there, you work with them. We're not involved in the process of scheduling your exam or rescheduling or the requirements that Criterion has for if it's an online test or on site and things like that. So it is with you to do that through Criterion. I will say, and I'm going to talk about our handbooks in a couple slides, I think, but the handbook goes into great detail by certification for the eligibility requirements, the application process, how to do it, as well as scheduling your test. And I would encourage you to definitely make sure you read the handbook, because there's different requirements for an on-site test versus an online, as far as system requirements, ID requirements, things like that. So make sure you're aware and able to meet the requirements of whichever testing method before you actually schedule it. Once you're approved, your application is good for 1 year, so or up to 3 exams. So you have 3 attempts to take and pass the exam within that year. So not everyone's going to pass on the first time. That's why we have the 3 exam attempts. And so make sure you're planning your time accordingly for that. So time to study, time to allow for the exam attempts. There's a wait period between exams. You can't take it today and then go sit for it tomorrow. Your handbook will tell you what the wait period is. I believe it's 10 days. The other thing is make sure you're scheduling in advance. We recommend up to 3 months. However, again, that is entirely with you and Criterion and their testing availability. We're not their only client. And so don't bank on you can go online and schedule today and have a test tomorrow. And the online tests are not on demand. Those schedule out as well, because there's a proctor that monitors your exam. They're only allowed so many people per person. So it's not an on-demand thing. And I know that the end of the year is a big rush for people to take their certification exams and get it done before the holidays. So right now, I think Criterion's booking at least a month out. So just be aware of those things. And also the handbook is going to walk you through if you do need to reschedule, if you need to cancel. It's going to walk you through how to do that, as well as the time frame if you do it within a certain time frame. I believe it's 72 hours. Don't quote me on that. Look at your handbook. You won't get a fee if you don't make the change to the cancel or the reschedule within that time frame. There will be a fee. Okay, so the application fees, there's, you see the application fees here by certification. There's a fee for the member rate and then the non-member rate. And then there is an exam fee. There's not a difference in the fee based on whether you do it on site or online. However, there is a difference just depending on location, if it's within US and Canada or outside. And then recertification fees, that is paid with your recert application at the end of your recertification cycle. Okay, your handbooks. They are your best friend for certification. Like John said, they provide a lot of great detail. Again, this is a general overview. Your handbooks are going to go into end-to-end detail from what is the certification, who pursues this type of certification, the requirements, how to schedule, how to cancel, you're certified, how to recertify, all of that. It's in great detail. It's a free download. So I've got some screenshots up here, but if you go to our website, go to the certification landing page, click on the Learn More button for whichever certification you're interested in. And then the picture there at the bottom, you'll see the reddish orange button that says Access Handbook. That will download. And again, it's a free download for you. Like John said, they are reviewed and updated from time to time. In fact, the CPCM and the CCMA and the CFCM have all been updated just this month. So don't do that thing that I sometimes do where I download something on my desktop and then I don't go back and check for updates. If you've got a handbook from 2009 on your desktop, it's most definitely out of date. All applicants and certificants are required to know and abide by the handbooks, and you certify to that. You confirm that you've read it, you understand it, and you're going to abide by it when you submit your certification application. And again, it is a free download for you. Okay, you got your certification. Now what? Like John said, it's designed to promote lifelong learning. So it doesn't just stop there. So once you achieve your certification or your recertification, start planning then to recertify. So what that could mean at first is just make sure you know what the requirements are. How many CPEs do you have to get? What's your recertification cycle? It's not the same for every certification. Some are on a 5-year cycle, some are on a 3-year cycle. Don't wait until it's the very last year or even 2 months before your certification expires to realize you have to earn 100 CPE or 60 CPE or whatever it might be. Make sure you understand what that is, and you're planning it out, because we don't have a procedure in place to reinstate an expired certification. So if you're not recertified by the end of your recert cycle, your cert goes away. And if you really want it again, then you've got to start all over, including the application, taking the exam, all of it. So make sure that you're really staying on top of those requirements. It's also really important that you understand your applications have to be fully approved, not just submitted by December 31st of your recertification deadline. So you don't expect to submit your recert application on December 31st and you're good. It doesn't work that way. Nini likes to take New Year's off. She wants a holiday. We all do. So make sure you're planning for that. And it's also important that you understand you're responsible to submit a correct and timely application that allows for that review and approval by December 31st. So again, we ask for up to 15 business days, and we do track that to go through your applications. There are several hundreds of these, and I know for this end of cycle, there's several hundred that yet need to come in. We're a small but mighty team, and we will work hard to get those processed, but your application has to be correct. And it has to be submitted timely to allow for that review and approval, and even a back and forth. So if you miss providing something, allow for some time for that to get it corrected before December 31st. I also want to add, you're not penalized if you recertify early. So for example, my CFCM expires next year, December 31, 23. I had all my CBE requirements done by this year, so I've already recertified. Now, the CFCM's on a 5-year cycle, so my cycle doesn't change. My next recertification is due December of 2028. So just because I recertified early, that doesn't change my cycle. So there's no penalty for doing that early. Again, your handbook is going to give you the right guidance on that. 3 keys: be in good standing, you agree to our code of ethics, our policies and procedures, meet the required CPE, and make sure you submit a responsible and timely application. Okay, continuing professional education. I want to make sure I spend a little bit of time on this because I would say over 90% of our questions are probably based on CPE. I think people see it as this daunting, complicated thing, and it really truly isn't. It just appears that way. I kind of liken it when I was in my career. Everyone was a little afraid of contract closeouts. They were just this mysterious thing that no one truly understood. And then at one point in my career, I became a closeout specialist. And once I started doing it, I realized it was actually quite a simple process. And I think the same is true of our CPEs. So first off, your CPE guide is your friend. Download a free copy. It's on our website. The link is there. I've got a screenshot here of the table of contents. So you can see we truly cover everything in there, from what qualifies to acceptable programs, unacceptable programs, university and college courses, how do you measure a CPE, what type of documentation. It's all in there. 3 keys to CPE. First off is qualifying. We just ask that it aligns with the SYMBOK competencies. You're going to find that in the appendix of the CPE guide. And I'll share a secret with all of you. It is on the honor system. So remember, you're held to the code of ethics and integrity, but when you report your CPEs, you tell us how it aligns with the CPE guide, or I'm sorry, with the SYMBOK competencies. So you own that. And we on purpose keep it simple, meaning we don't tell you you have to take this course and this strictly applies or doesn't apply, because we want to give you as many and as much options as you can for training. Training comes in all shapes and sizes. We have a lot of options available through NCMA, but there are a lot of options outside of NCMA. I know a lot of organizations do their own internal contract management training. That counts. So it really is not is not that complicated. Make sure it aligns with the SYMBOK. Otherwise, you're in charge of what training you want, how you're going to get it, where you're going to get it, and that sort of thing. The timing, like John said, for a new application, you have 10 years. If you've gone through the CMLDP program, you get a whole lot of CPEs. So like me, I graduated in 2013. So I have until July, if I wanted, July of next year, I can use those CPE credits for another cert application. Your recertification application, the CPE timeframe for that is going to be dependent on which certification you have. Your certification handbook will tell you, and then John walked through it a little bit ago. And then section 2.0 of the CPE guide walks you through all of this. Okay, so documentation, we get this question a lot. What documentation do you need? Section 9.0 of the CPE guide, maintaining documentation, it outlines all of that. And we give a lot of options because we know you're not going to always get a certificate of attendance with CPE hours on it for every single training that you do. So we give you options, and I don't have them all memorized, but they are listed out in the CPE guide. For example, if you've got a meeting notice that has an agenda or the subject matter within the notice, and it gives you the title, and it gives you, it's a 90-minute session, that sort of thing, that's good documentation. And we go through, again, look at the guide, look at section 9.0, because it's going to outline a lot of different ways for you to capture documentation for your training. And with that, these are the resources we've talked about with links. If you email us at the certification email there, you will get all three of us. And I want to open it up to questions. Let's see. All right, so Nini, if you could, I know you've been monitoring the Q&A. Could you throw out some questions for John and I?
Sure thing. So I have a question that says, can you give any guides or institutions for training in the India area? In India.
Oh, interesting. I would say look at the CPE guide for what qualifies. I'm not familiar myself directly with what's available in India. But if you look at the CPE guide for acceptable programs and topics, it should kind of help you filter that, as well as, again, aligning with the SIMBOK competencies. John, anything to add?
Just if you could interpret it for us, translate it to English so we can understand it, to make sure that you do get the full benefit of any training you've had. And that goes for any language. Simply because you're in another country, you take contract management course under a language other than English, you're not going to be punished for that. Now, keep in mind that the exams are only in English. They're international. You can go anywhere. You can take them online, but at this time, NCMA exams are only in English.
And then our next question, how similar is the curriculum to JD curriculum on contracts?
To what? Can you say that again?
How similar is the curriculum to the JD curriculum on contracts?
Well, I think if you're comparing it to business, if you have, well, your JD is essentially a master's degree. And as long as it's from an accredited institution, you're going to qualify. So really, out of that master's degree, your JD, we just need the first 4 years to qualify for the education portion of it if you're talking about the certifications, and then anything extra. If you have a master's courses, that would count toward your CPE. So as we pointed out, the handbook will give you the formula on that. So any master's courses, business courses, can qualify for your CPE.
Yeah, and I'll add, if you're not familiar with the SIMBOK, it's much more than just contract management. It goes into business management. There's accounting, finance, there's marketing, there's risk management, there's leadership development and organizational management. So it covers a lot more than just specific contracting.
And the next question is, I have a master's degree in legal studies and in a contract analyst role. Would it be beneficial to become certified? Do we offer contract specific courses or recommend any institutes that do?
Well, I do think it's a benefit to be certified because it continues, like we said before, it's voluntary. It shows continuous professional development. And it shows your desire for that lifelong learning. And it is very specific to contract management, and even depending on what you're interested in, whether it's the FAR or UCC or more of that overall program management approach, which I think the CPCM offers. As far as specific courses, or curriculums, and I saw another question on here about asking about courses as well as free ones. If you check out, NCMA offers a lot of great courses. We do have our online prep courses. Those are, however, no guarantee of success in your exams, and they're certainly not required to take your exams, but they are a great way to gain CPE as well as to study. We also have a lot of free webinars that are on demand on our website. So I would encourage you to check those out. John, anything to add?
Just on everybody who has a degree, keep in mind that any hiring official or somebody who's willing to give you an opportunity want to know how current your education is. So as we pointed out, NCMA doesn't care how old your degree is, but your hiring official may want to know how current are you in the career field. So rather than going back and getting another degree, certification is a huge milestone to show that you are keeping current in the career field. So if you have a degree that's 8 years old right now, get certified now, and you have something from 2022 showing that you are current and relevant in the career field.
And then we have a question that says, these certification courses and certificates are predominantly for government contracts. However, I am in a nonprofit organization. I do find these certificates important, but are there ones that are more specific to nonprofit or government organizations, or is there one coming soon?
I would say, without really understanding your line of work, I do think that they apply. Again, the CCCM is commercial based. For government based, the CFCM goes over the FAR, and then the CPCM kind of touches on everything. It's not just, it's federal, it's commercial, it's international, and it's industry. So it kind of covers all of those. We don't have one specific to a nonprofit association, but I think that's just kind of rolled into what our certifications cover. John, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with that. The CCMA and the CPCM are probably what you're looking for, because it does get into the entire life cycle of a contract. It doesn't matter if it's federal based or commercial based. It covers everything. It's universal.
Another question is, why is the CCCM not accredited? Which institutes offer CPE hours for various exams? Are there practice exams and tuition?
So the CCCM, why is it not accredited? I actually don't know why we haven't done that with that one.
Yeah, we went through it. It's a long process through each one of them. The CCCM is now being assessed as far as return on investment and things like that. So that determination will be made soon as to whether it's there's a lot of time and money invested in each one of these certifications on NCMA's part, and we just want to, and we're still assessing the CCM, but it's the next one in line.
Yeah. And what was the second part of the question, Mimi?
CP hour courses, where can they find them, and are there practice exams for our other certificates?
Okay. You can find courses on NCMA's website. I know we don't have one specific to the CCCM at this time. And I don't believe we have a practice exam specific to that one at this time. Like John said, we are kind of reassessing that one as far as just essentially market demand. Our other certifications have seen a little bit higher demand than that one has. But if you're interested, please do let us know in those types of things, because what we do is based on what you all want. All right, Nini, I think we have time for one more question.
All right, and the next question is for the FAR. Is this for contracts that are paid with federal funds as well?
Say that again?
So for FAR, is this just like focused on contracts that are paid with federal funds?
Oh, got you. The answer is probably largely yes, but it's not that the CFCM is only designed to, if it's a federally based contract. If you in your job, whatever that might be, need to know and understand the FAR, then the CFCM is going to be a fantastic resource for you. So it really just depends on your level of need and use of the FAR within your job and within your career goals itself. So with that, I appreciate, I know we didn't get to everyone's questions. If you continue to have questions, again, download our free resources. Feel free to ask the questions. You have our email information, and we're more than happy to help and assist you. So with that, I want to thank you all for your participation today in our events. I really do hope it helped answer your questions and helped you learn a little bit more about our certification program. One very important note, please take a moment. There will be a survey, which is in Zoom, and it'll pop up on your screen once you leave the webinar. And you have to do that survey so that you can receive today's recording and slide deck. And with that, this concludes our program for today. Thank you again for taking your time out of your day. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in future events. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.